Greetings, digital world. Happy New Year. Welcome back once again to another episode of Spliced In Later, the first episode of 2023. I hope you all had a good New Year's and you either got up to mischief or you enjoyed staying at home in your pajamas. Either way is the perfect way to ring in a new year. So I hope whatever you did, it was fantastic. I'm excited to get in with you this year for another year of Spliced In Later content. Recently I dropped my top 10 movies of 2022. It was a pretty crazy year for movies, some really good stuff and some pretty stuff. But we're about to do it all over again. And as warned towards the end of last year, the content on this podcast, on this YouTube's, or whatever you're listening to, will definitely start to levitate more to strictly movie TV reviews because there's just more of them to get through. But every now and then we will try and look at some other content that's not just whatever new movie has come out that week, whether it's adding to some running shows I've got going on, or some more top 10s, or movie recommendations for past movies. Whatever, it will still be here. It just probably will not be as consistent. I mean, case in point, it's only January 3 here in Australia as I record this, and I have already lined up an advanced screening to go see a movie that was supposed to come out last year, which answers another question that I've actually been getting a lot, surprisingly. I get it a little bit every year, but this year is surprisingly more so. No, I will not be releasing an episode that does my top 10 most anticipated movies for 2023. Now, I know a lot of other movie reviewers or entertainment people love to do that, and I understand that for sure. It gets a lot of views, it gets a lot of attention for everybody to see. Are we all excited for these movies? Do we all excited for the same movies? I'm excited for this movie, so I'd like for you to say that you're excited for this movie as well. And as I said, my list of movies that I plan to see this year is the longest list I've ever written. Plus, that doesn't include movies that will just come out of the woodwork and surprise me. However, we are still currently living in pandemic times. We might be in endemic, or whatever it's called. But whatever's going on in the world, and it's not just the pandemic, it's the crisis in Ukraine, global warming, tons of stuff like that, the rise of streaming, business plans, all of that. Meaning that it's really hard to look ahead to a year with all these movies locked in on these certain dates and pick 10 of those, for instance, and be like, these are the ones I'm most excited for, when there is every possible chance. And it's been this way very much so since 2020. A good chunk of what you're looking forward to will inevitably, unfortunately, probably get postponed. And normally it's postponed by about a year. So a movie you could be looking forward to this year will get pushed back, and then you won't be looking forward to it really until 2023 ends and 2024 runs around. Now that's fine, that's just how the industry works, and we all just have to be big boys and get on with it. But if you're making a video every year, and let's use a past example. Let's say back in 2019, the start of 2019, I made a top 10 anticipated movies, and I put Top Gun Maverick on there. Very exciting at the time. It turns out it was really good, but you know what I mean. Anyway, then that year they made the decision to hold back Top Gun Maverick to 2020. That's okay. I think the reasons then was just to avoid less competition in the movie theaters. I think they weren't sure exactly how well Top Gun would do. So yeah, push it back to 2020. So I make a top 10 most anticipated movies for 2020. Put Top Gun Maverick on there. Then, of course, the pandemic kicks off and Top Gun's pushed back to 2021 a couple of times and then all the way to 2022. Meaning potentially there would be 4 years in a row I could have had to say my top 10 anticipated movies for this year, Top Gun Maverick. And by the fourth time, what more can you say other than I'm looking forward to this movie? Even now, as I'm going through looking at my favorite movie reviewers on YouTube and they're putting up their lists, one specific example, about half the movies they said they're anticipating, they'd said it in the previous year, and they acknowledged they said it in the video as well. It's just, hopefully it does come out this year. Hopefully it doesn't get delayed. So on that instance alone, simply to avoid repetition, I won't be doing stuff like that because I cannot handle, it's like a curse as well. You don't want to say I'm really excited for this and then inevitably it's delayed and then you have to do it next year. Can you imagine if someone had done that for Avatar: The Way of Water? They would have had to have 13 videos saying how excited they were for Avatar that year. So yeah, that's why I won't be doing that. So stop asking. But we're not even talking about new movies this week. Today, because I haven't seen a new movie yet, we are once again adding to our ever-expanding, perhaps impossible to achieve attempt to analyze every form of product or content that has been released by the Marvel Cinematic Universe. As I say before every one of these videos, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is a solid thing that I love tremendously, not just for the world building, but for its characters, its storytelling. It's able to build suspension and comedy and all of that. And if you'll recall, when I was reviewing my Black Panther Wakanda Forever and talking about the end of Phase 4, you might have noticed a bit of disenchantment, a bit of disillusionment with the franchise for its what I thought was possibly a lack of direction or substituting quality for quantity. So to really put that to the test, for my first week off from work during the Christmas time, I did a massive Marvel Cinematic Universe marathon. I watched everything all the way from the start of Iron Man through to the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special. That includes all the movies and all the Disney Plus shows. I didn't go insane and watch all 7 seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and all 3 seasons of Daredevil and all 2 seasons of Cloak and Dagger and all of that. Otherwise, you'd never see me again. But for the official stuff that's considered canon or whatever by the powers that be, it took me a whole week to do it. It would have taken longer. The very first day, I thought, I'm going to try and stay awake for as long as I possibly can. So I stayed up all night the first night. But I was doing pretty good. I got my second wind once the first night had passed. But there was a point where I was watching Thor Ragnarok and we were heading up to midnight on the second day and I could not stay awake. And I was sitting up straight. I just couldn't do it anymore. So for the sake of sanity and because I knew I had so much more to do, I did sleep. And from that point on, I did go to sleep at certain points during the marathon, mainly for power naps, just to keep it on. And I loved it. I loved every second of that fucking marathon. Thought it was great. I loved seeing the Infinity Saga as one complete story was great. And going back and rewatching some of this Phase 4 stuff and getting a bit more of a momentum, especially for the Disney Plus shows where I could watch them all in one go instead of having to wait on a week-by-week basis, basically just for a really long movie to be told in chunks. It was fantastic. So it reiterated my love for the MCU and I'm ready to get back into it and talk about it. I know this year there's at least 3 movies and possibly a ton of Disney Plus shows. So in that instance, we'll be adding to the MCU that way. But we will also be going back to the beginning and going through and looking at each individual thing that has helped build the MCU way back when Iron Man started in 2008. Phase 1 is completed. We've done that. And as of this one, we are officially more than halfway through Phase 2. So for this instance, we will be talking about Guardians of the Galaxy, which came out in August 2014, the first new MCU movie since Captain America that wasn't a sequel or a team-up movie. It was introducing brand new characters in a brand new chunk of the Marvel Cinematic Universe world that we had not visited before, starring Chris Pratt as Peter Quill, aka Star-Lord, as well as Zoe Saldana as Gamora, Dave Bautista as Drax the Destroyer, Vin Diesel doing the motion capture and voice of Groot, and Bradley Cooper as the voice of Rocket Raccoon, with his motion capture being done by Sean Gunn, brother of James Gunn, who directed the movie. Now, as we look back on Guardians of the Galaxy, I think we can all agree that not only is it one of the best MCU films, but the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise, these characters, this world, are genuinely beloved by everybody who's watched these Marvel films. Everybody loves the characters in Guardians of the Galaxy. Everybody loves the humor. Everybody loves the emotion. And everybody gets excited for anything new about Guardians of the Galaxy. We have had 2 movies in the franchise. The Guardians then teamed up with everybody else in the big Avengers Infinity War Endgame climax of the Infinity Saga. But more uniquely as well, they've had their own little extra things on the side of what's going on, whether it's the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special, the only MCU thing so far to have something like that in forms of Christmas celebration, whether it's the little animated shorts for I Am Groot featuring literally the most beloved baby of all time, maybe excluding Baby Yoda, but little animated baby Groot just having 5-minute adventures. All building, of course, to what's coming out this year, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, the final film in the Guardians trilogy directed by James Gunn. I don't know what the plans are for the characters after that, if someone's going to come and direct a 4th film, or if they'll segue off into other TV shows or something like that. I'm not sure. But James Gunn's plan seems to be to culminate in a big emotional finale for his characters and his story and his vibe and tone for these Guardians movies, which is probably, if I had to make an anticipated video for this year, Guardians 3 would absolutely be on it. So I probably cursed it, and we're not going to get it this year after all. Now, saying that, it's probably hilarious to look back and know there was a time where no one was excited for this movie. Nobody gave it any sort of a chance or believed it was ever going to be good. Poo-pooed the casting, poo-pooed the direction choice. Thank you, my little cat Allie, for knocking that off the table. You are loved. Thank you so much. I will not feed you now. Bugger off. It's kind of like, if you look at 2021 when Eternals came out, Guardians is like the opposite of Eternals. Eternals, when they announced it at Comic-Con, there was a lot of intrigue and excitement for it. People were pretty excited that Chloe Zhao was directing it. They loved the lineup of cast to be in it. There were Richard Madden, Kit Harington, Angelina Jolie, Salma Hayek. And then Eternals does hit after all this hype, and people were genuinely not impressed. It didn't resonate with a lot of people. It didn't make a lot of money at the box office. It has one of the MCU's lowest Rotten Tomatoes scores. And as a result, one of those examples that proves that as much as the MCU can plan for things, they are still very reactionary. The Eternals hasn't resonated, so you can tell the powers that be, Kevin Feige and his Godfather friends, they're not sure what they're going to do next with these characters. Are they going to make another movie? Are they going to have them show up in other things? How integral was the Eternals to this overarching plot involving Kang the Conqueror? Who knows? We really don't know, and no one seems to be in any particular rush to confirm that. As you all know, though, I'm in the minority in that I think Eternals is one of the greatest MCU films of all time and is one of my all-time favorite movies. So I guess I'm dumb. But Guardians was different. So back then, Guardians of the Galaxy is officially the 10th movie to come out in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The Avengers has just become very successful. Everybody loved it. And then with the whole Thanos appearing in the post-credits, once everybody had a quick Google who weren't Marvel fans and learnt who Thanos was, there was that excitement going, oh, okay, so we're going to get to a confrontation with Thanos. And there was rumors that at the end of this, or after the second Avengers film, the third Avengers film would be Infinity War, which would be the ultimate confrontation with the biggest bad that has ever been on Marvel screens ever. So, but it's everybody's in love with our new main characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, specifically Tony, Thor, Steve. So when they're announcing Iron Man 3, it's like, yes, more Robert Downey Jr. Then they're announcing Thor, yes, more Chris Hemsworth, more Chris Evans as Captain America for the Winter Soldier. We're getting an Avengers Age of Ultron. So yes, awesome. The Avengers get to team up together for another very infamous and popular villain in the Marvel Comics world. We're getting an Ant-Man film directed by Edgar Wright, apparently. That sounds awesome. Edgar Wright's a great director. Ant-Man is a beloved character from the Marvel franchise, one of the original Avengers in the comic history. So we're all excited for that. Oh, and we're also making Guardians of the Galaxy. Everybody goes, what is that? What are they? Who are they? Who are you talking about? Picture comes up behind Kevin Feige on the screen at Comic-Con showing a giant tree and a raccoon with guns and a bunch of people that nobody recognizes on an alien planet. And like the actor Chris Pratt, your favorite comedy actor from Parks and Recreation, he's going to be playing big buff Star-Lord, and world famous wrestler Dave Bautista will be playing Drax the Destroyer. And you like Zoe Saldana as Blue Girl in Avatar, so she's going to be Green Girl in Guardians of the Galaxy. If the internet had existed back then in the way it does now, your social media would just be full of, this is gonna suck. Marvel, what are you doing? Why are you picking up a franchise that nobody knows about? The Guardians of the Galaxy, boring. Who cares? Who's Star-Lord? Whatever. Make a Doctor Strange movie. Make a Black Panther movie. Who's this? Dave Bautista can't act. Chris Pratt can't be a hero. A raccoon with guts, just too silly. This is too silly for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Why haven't they confirmed that there's going to be other actors in this? Oh, it's set in space, so Iron Man can't even hang out. I hope Iron Man at least is in the movie. I did a quick Google search, and Iron Man is a part of the Guardians of the Galaxy at some point. So I guess really it's another Iron Man movie, but this is going to be terrible. James Gunn's directing it. James Gunn, the guy who does a lot of independent indie films. who has some questionable tweets on Twitter, whose movies are kind of gross and violent and disgusting. You want him to direct this movie, to add to the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Basically, everyone had decided right from the get-go it was going to suck. I can't remember how I reacted. I think I was at that point where I will gladly accept anything. I was well deep in the Marvel Cinematic Universe hole. Don't say that. Rabbit hole, at least. Let's put rabbit in front of hole. The idea that they were building this cinematic universe where everybody was interacting with each other, so it didn't worry me. And I was not a Marvel hardcore fan or anything. I knew of characters, but I wasn't about to be like, they should make this movie, but they should make that movie. I was just keen to see the movie. I know one of my friends was very excited for it because of James Gunn, the director, and knew a bit about Guardians of the Galaxy, and had told me if they do it right, it could potentially be an okay movie. But that was it. It was going to be an okay movie. Guardians of the Galaxy comes out, absolutely blows everybody away with how good it is in so many factors. Word of mouth spread, ended up grossing a ton of money on the budget that it was on, to a point where Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 was rushed out probably quicker than they had planned, because MCU, while planning things, is reactionary. Or people love Guardians of the Galaxy, we better make another movie quick. Let's go. So Guardians of the Galaxy, looking back on it, it's the story of Peter Quill, aka Star-Lord. He's a young human from Earth who is abducted by aliens when he's a kid, right after his mother dies from a brain tumor. Then we flash forward to the present, and he's a bit of a Han Solo-ish rogue in the galaxy who calls himself Star-Lord. He used to be a part of a crew called the Ravagers, led by Yondu, blue-skinned creep, played by Michael Rooker. But he's gone out on his own because he's heard of this MacGuffin of our film, which is called the Orb. Now, everybody wants this Orb. The villain of the film, Ronan the Accuser, played by Lee Pace, who is an alien fanatic who's kind of a subordinate to Thanos in one of those few things about this movie that supplant to the larger MCU Infinity Saga as a whole, was introducing the world of Thanos, the family of Thanos, with his daughters Gamora and Nebula and all of that. But Gamora's after the Orb to pull away from her father. Nebula wants the Orb to please her father. Once Yondu puts a bounty on Quill, bounty hunters Groot and Rocket Raccoon go after Quill for that bounty. They all end up getting thrown together in jail, where there's Drax, who's this really weird alien who takes everything literally and has a sworn vendetta against Ronan and Thanos for destroying his planet and killing his wife and child. As everybody races for this orb, though, they realize that it is in fact one of the Infinity Stones, the Power Stone, and whoever wields it will be able to just annihilate everything in their path. Ronan wants it to annihilate a particular planet, and then our heroes have to decide if they're going to stand against him or continue their sleaziness of just trying to sell the orb to the highest bidder. Of course, they will come together as a team, as the Guardians of the Galaxy, to save the galaxy. Pretty much, pretty guessable stuff there. It's a very exciting, fast-paced movie that at the time I thought was a real good hearkening of what made movies like Star Wars so good, like a space opera adventure movie, utilizing space and aliens and planets in a way that hadn't been done for some time. What I also thought was a bit of fresh air for the movie as well at that time was, yes, I like Iron Man, I like Thor, I like Captain America, but there was that danger. The MCU danced very close to just using the same characters in the same franchise to tell the stories they wanted to tell. So we'll just keep going back to Cap and Thor and Tony. Guardians was a movie that existed in this world but did not rely on having already been established in that world to succeed. You didn't need to know who these people were. You didn't need to have cameos in here or references to other things that had happened in other movies. Apart from knowing that Thanos is out there, and apart from knowing the Collector, who had been introduced in a post-credit scene in Dark World, Guardians operates on its own level, in its own playground, that the other Marvel characters really can't be a part of because it's so disconnected. But it still felt like a Marvel movie. It felt like something that existed in this world that had been built and established for so long. Everything about the movie just works. It all works in like a perfect symbiotic harmony. James Gunn's direction, I don't know how many people who are listening to this have watched James Gunn movies outside of Guardians of the Galaxy. Maybe to an extent you've seen The Suicide Squad because it's DC, so it's DC Comics and whatever James Gunn has done for that. Aside from that, he's done a lot of indie stuff, which has been hit or miss. I think the most mainstream thing he did that's not Guardians might be Brightburn, which is like, what if Superman came to landed on Earth but grew up to be an asshole? I'm not sure. But whether his movies are critically successful or not, there's one thing that James Gunn knows how to do to a T, and that is how to take unknown, unlikable, unscrupulous characters and create emotion and drama and depth out of them. You have a movie here where two of the characters are ridiculous, a giant tree and a raccoon, but in a way they are the emotional heart of the movie. And whether it's Quill having to deal with the fact that his mother died and all he has left of her is this mixtape he's got, whether it's Drax being this goofy guy who takes everything literally, but inside he's completely crushed because of the tragedy of his whole family being murdered. Whatever happened to Rocket that took him from Earth as a normal raccoon to be experimented on, Groot's connection to these characters and eventual sacrifice in the movie, Gamora growing up as the daughter of Thanos, they've all got such terrible backstories and horrible things have happened to them. And in a way, them coming together as a family in this movie is such pure emotion and heart that you root for them so much by the end you don't even want them to be a superhero team or anything. You just want them to lean on each other as a family. And it's not just the Guardians. Yondu in here, he's more of an antagonist in this movie, but with Michael Rooker, a James Gunn collaborator, regular sort of thing, you knew that he would eventually be built into something more, and there was more going on. As with Nebula, not just generic evil foot soldier, there's that history of Gamora and Thanos that would eventually be built on later on as well. In fact, the weakest part of the movie is just the villain Ronan. No, nothing against Lee Pace in any way, but Ronan really is just a thing that everybody has to rally against to stop. His motivation is, I want to cause trouble because I can. Not in a really bottom of the barrels way like Malekith from Dark World, but not in a clever emotional depth sort of way like Loki or Killmonger. He's just the villain that we need for the movie, but not important enough to really develop or understand. Ronan's even made an appearance since then in the Captain Marvel movie set in the 90s, and I know absolutely nothing new about him from that because there's just nothing there. The performances were fantastic. The one thing I will say is that I also thought the Dave Bautista thing probably wouldn't work. I think I'd seen him in an episode of Smallville, but every single actor on here brought 110% to the role. Even Bradley Cooper, who you can tell is not really involved in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He's never at the press events. I doubt he's on set meeting any of these people. I'm sure he's just sent the scripts that he needs to read to give Rocket life. But credit where credit's due, Bradley Cooper isn't just reading lines. He makes Rocket the heart and soul of this movie, and every movie that features the Guardians, Rocket is the most emotionally depth and important character, I think. He, in my opinion, overtakes Peter Quill as the main character of this franchise, of this world, the most important character to follow, and I'm horrified and wary that he may die in Guardians 3, but we'll just have to wait. And the one other thing that Guardians of the Galaxy stands head and shoulders above all the other movies is the soundtrack. Not just the music, which is done very well by Tyler Bates, I think does the theme for Guardians. It's a very memorable theme. But it's the use of 80s songs. The soundtrack is influenced by the fact that Peter Quill was abducted in the 80s, and the mixtape he was given by his mother are all classic 80 hits. So all through the movie are 80s songs, but they're not like the 2016 Suicide Squad where it's just music played for the sake of music. The songs that you hear are always in conjunction and to complement whatever scene you're watching, whether it's to provide emotion or levity or depth. It's just perfect. And I know it works because the revitalization for 80s music after this movie, the Spotify lists, all of that just exploded out of here. Hooked on a Feeling, for example. That went nuts after everyone saw Guardians of the Galaxy, because not only is it a banger song, but people remembered that it existed. So, You've got incredible direction from James Gunn. Incredible performances from our actors who people didn't expect too much from, with the exception of maybe Zoe Saldana. Incredible soundtrack. The humor as well. It's very, very silly humor, but not silly for the sake of humor. It's one of the funniest MCU films, but it doesn't, unlike Thor: Love and Thunder, substitute emotion and depth and storytelling for just cheap gags. It all works perfectly together. And you have a movie that is just perfect to rewatch. It's one of my favorite movies to watch when I'm doing my marathons and I get to Guardians, because by that point, yes, I've enjoyed everything before it, but it's been a lot of Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America. Let's see something new. Guardians not only took a bunch of characters from a less known corner of the Marvel world and made them so beloved that Guardians is now one of the most popular comics in the Marvel world, not just in the movies as well. But it said, yes, as we build this world, we don't have to rely on the same characters and the same corners of the cinematic universe to retell our stories over and over again. We can take anything as long as we know what we're doing and we can make it good. And I think it's because of Guardian's success that we were able to go on to Ant-Man and Doctor Strange and Spider-Man Homecoming and Black Panther and Captain Marvel with a sense of assurance and confidence that even if it were brand new characters in a brand new part of the world we hadn't seen before, the themes and tone and everything would remain consistent and the quality would be not always perfect, but of a high standard for sure. That's 100%. And it's all because of James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy. So top notch. It's a 10 out of 10 film for me easily. And if for some reason you're listening to this and you're like, I haven't seen it, watch it. I guarantee you will love it. Everybody does. I don't know a single person who doesn't like this movie. It's really good stuff. It beat the odds and it came out on top. There, well, thank you very much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed yet another look into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the early days. When I get back to this, we'll be going, as I said when I talked about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I'm going through everything that has ever been considered to be a part of the MCU, regardless of whether anyone's decided in the last minute whether it's canon or not. Meaning, our next episode will be about Agent Carter. Of the shows, though, that I think that are considered non-canon, Agent Carter is probably non-canon-ish because of Edwin Jarvis appearing in Avengers Endgame and Peggy's being such a prominent part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I will not be going season by season. It's just going to be a general overview of the show. There were only 2 seasons, though, so it will probably be more consistent and overall than Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was. But I'm excited to do that. I'm really excited to talk about the stuff that I think people aren't talking about as much anymore as they get left behind as the MCU continues to expand and evolve and pick and choose which stuff it wants to focus on more and stuff that it wants to leave behind. Anyway, I enjoyed talking about that and I hope you enjoyed listening. I'll be back next week for my movie review. I'm going to go see Operation Fortune Ruse de Guerre, the long-delayed Guy Ritchie film starring Jason Statham, which I believe was delayed because it has a bit of an issue with the villains in the film being of Ukrainian descent. And I 100% agree and understand why it was postponed at the outset of the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. I'm still not 100% sure why we've decided now that it's okay to release it, because that war is still going on. Just because no one cares anymore, it's still horrible. But I want to see the movie, so I'll go see the movie. I'll be seeing it in an advanced screening over the weekend. I'll give it a few days to think about, and then I'll give you my review on my usual Tuesday. So until then, I hope you tune in and listen to that, and I hope you've enjoyed listening to Guardians of the Galaxy Love, because that's all I've really done is just say how much I love it. Until next week, love and appreciate you as always. Thank you for listening. You've been spliced in later. Adios, muchachos. I'll catch you next time.